Hello, this is Overlord Bo, and today I'll be covering the newest destroyer line coming to World of Warships, the French torpedo boat line, aka the Cassard line. Now, this new line does have an interesting torpedo gimmick. The gimmick of this new Cassard line is pretty simple. It's best explained in the ways of how they did it with the submarines. With the submarines, the torpedoes do less damage until 3 kilometers. When it's past 3 kilometers, it does full damage, and that's how it works for the submarines. For the Cassard line, it's pretty much the opposite. It's where if the torpedoes are within 8 kilometers, they do full damage, and past 8 kilometers, it does less damage. So say that there's a battleship that's coming at you as you're kiting away, and the torpedoes hit them within 8 kilometers of where they were launched. They will then do full damage, but if the battleship is like kiting away and you launch the torpedoes and they go past that 8 kilometers, they do less damage. And that's how this gimmick works for the Cassard line. Let's talk about a little bit of a backstory on this line. Now, post-World War I, the French Navy decided to split the roles of the destroyers. The large destroyers, represented by the Cassard line, were intended to scout for the battle line, expecting to do skirmishes with the enemy scouts. The standard destroyer line, the Cassard line, were designed to launch torpedoes into enemy fleets, as well as defending the Allied fleets from torpedo boats. Here's the build for the Cassard, so you can take a look at this. It's pretty much focused on the torpedoes, since that is the main gimmick of this line and not the guns. If you try to build guns this thing, you're going to have a really rough time, so definitely just focus on building torpedoes, and you'll have a good day. Moving on from that, let's talk about the overall stats of this ship. Let's move on talking about the hull. Now, the hull is a pretty mediocre HP pool. You do get the French saturation, which makes the French destroyers improve durability compared to typical destroyers, just from the fact that it can take more damage than other destroyers do that French saturation. But even though you do get that French saturation, it is still a fragile ship that relies on her speed boost to dodge enemy fire long enough to be able to escape. You don't get smoke on this thing, so your only option is to just dodge. Now let's talk about the guns. Now for the guns, they're short-range guns with okay DPM. You're not going to be able to gunboat, say, heavy DPM destroyers like the Smollett or Kleber, Marceau, Regilo. Any of like the really strong gunboats, you're not going to be able to face in this thing. You'll be absolutely massacred, especially against ships also that have sap. Sap can deal a lot of damage to the French saturation. Pretty much the Frenchies, it does a lot of damage to them. It kind of ignores that French saturation, so it just does a lot of damage. So definitely be careful of dealing with sap destroyers like the Sherman. You'll definitely deal a lot of damage from them. They'll hurt you a lot. Now the shells are pretty floaty, comparable to say Smollett or Marceau ballistics. So you're going to be if you are going to be using the guns, you need to use the guns at close range. And again, you can't really farm with this ship due to the fact you don't have smoke. So your main focus is going to be the torpedoes, which we're going to be jumping right into. These torpedoes have a very interesting damage drop-off gimmick, which I talked about earlier in the video. Pretty much after 8 kilometers, the torpedoes will gradually deal less damage over time. But when the torpedoes are within 8 kilometers, they have a very high initial alpha of 24,000, which is a lot of damage for a torpedo. Now, you get 4 triple torpedo tubes, and you get 6 torpedoes per side of a total of 12. You have a decent torpedo reload of 2 minutes with a high range of 13.5 kilometers. Now, these torpedoes are pretty quick with a 72 knot speed for the torpedoes, and they're very good firing angles and overall very, very excellent torpedoes. I've seen a lot of people try to play this thing as like a makeshift yellowing torpedo boat. You can technically do this if you have islands to your advantage, but even though you do have a 6.1 kilometer concealment when you build all the way into it, it's not going to be super effective, because again, you only have about 24,000 HP. And you're a destroyer with no heal, no smoke. So whatever you're going to be running at is going to have some time to be able to turn out or do a lot of damage to you before you're able to get the torps off. So you have to keep that in mind on what target to be running at. Now, if you use an island to get close and then rush around the island, do the torps, then yes, you can definitely do that. I believe a single side can kill a tier 8 battleship, but both sided torps will be needed to kill a full health tier 10 battleship. But a tier 8 battleship or a tier 9, you could probably use one full side rack, so like 6 torpedoes on a tier 8 or tier 9 will definitely kill them for sure. You can definitely do that if you're just going to rush them around an island. But a tier 10 battleship will most likely, like in Ohio, Montana, Yamato, will definitely take 2 sided torpedoes, so all 12 of them, to kill one of those bigger behemoths. Let's talk about the anti-air and anti-submarine capabilities of this ship. Per charge, you get 12 depth charges with 3,000 damage each, which is a very high amount of damage for depth charges. But again, it can be very hard to rush submarines with your low speed. If you are going to rush a sub, you're definitely going to have to use your speed boost to be able to keep up with them or be able to catch up to them. Even though you do have a 34 knot base top speed, with the engine boost, you go way faster and you'll definitely be able to catch up to submarines, but you'll only be able to do that with the engine boost. Now, talking about the anti-air, even though you get 6-kilometer anti-air, you're only going to really be able to shoot down fighters. Good luck actually trying to shoot down anything more healthy than a fighter. Like the normal French tech tree line DDs, you're not going to do any damage to anti-air, so learn to just dodge. Good luck with that. Moving on, let's talk about the maneuverability. For the maneuverability, like I said earlier, you have a 34 knot base top speed, very slow. Luckily enough, you do have a partially compensated with the French speed boost with a 610 meter turning radius. It is the tightest turning DD at tier 10. Incredibly good turning radius on this thing. You'll be able to dodge and weave like crazy. Now, for the rudder shift, you do have an above average rudder shift time of 4.5 seconds. So it's pretty good for the tier. Other than speed, it has excellent maneuverability, and the speed is less of an issue when the speed boost is active, but when you don't have the speed boost, you're kind of a sitting duck. So be careful when you're engaging with other destroyers. Make sure you have your engine boost available so you're able to get out of those situations as quickly as possible. Moving on, let's talk about the concealment. You have a 6.1 kilometer surface best concealment with a 3 kilometer air detection. It's very respectable concealment, on par with the Z52. So if you've ever played a Z52 before, then you'll know how the concealment feels. It feels very similar. Now, this concealment is great, but the lack of anti-air and smoke will make you feel very painful at times, especially with all the new hybrids that are out and the CVs that are going around. It's definitely going to be a very painful ship to play for newer players. Now, moving on, let's talk about the final stats of this ship, the consumables. You do have an emergency speed boost on this thing, gives a 30% speed boost for 90 seconds. It is very important to use this when you're going into engagements for the speed juking enemy shots, being able to get in and out of situations. You don't want to use this willy-nilly when you're just driving around. A lot of time you want to save this for when you're going into engagements, and then when you're out of engagements, kind of wait for it to be reloaded, then go back in. It's probably the best way to use the engine speed boost from my experience. You do get a normal destroyer DCP of 5 seconds with a long reload, so nothing really special there for the DCP. So let's just talk about the Cassard ship itself, like my opinion of it, pretty much. I would say the Cassard is a very interesting torpedo boat, right? I think of it as like a French version of the Holland. While she doesn't get a heal or a smoke, her speed boost and respectable guns allow her to gunfight other destroyers at close range. Pretty much any destroyer below, or like pretty much destroyer at a daring level and below, like below a daring gunboating wise, you can take on and do pretty much beat pretty much. But if you fight something like a daring and above, you're gonna have a lot of trouble fighting them. So definitely be careful when you just do you try to engage with other destroyers. But again, you definitely need to be careful. You have no quick way to disengage, so don't just carelessly open up. A good example of this is pretty much right. Imagine you're going into a cap, right? You're going into a cap and you get spotted. And instead of just opening up at the enemy destroyer, you just turn out, use your engine boost, and go away. You have to focus on this thing being more of like a torpedo boat rather than a typical French gunboat. You have to focus more on the torpedo side rather than the gun side. So a lot of you torpedo mains that love playing torpedo boats, you're going to have a lot of fun with this ship. And you'll be able to do a lot of good damage understanding that this ship is more of a torpedo boat rather than a gunboat. And if you do that, you'll do perfectly fine in this match. Well, not in this match, just in this ship in general. But again, like I was saying, you need to focus on this ship as in being a torpedo boat and focusing on torpedoing other ships. These torpedoes are incredibly deadly at close range. And even though they still deal respectable damage, even at max range, but you're still trying to hit ships under 8 kilometers for that maximum damage. But it's still fine to stay further back if there's a lot of threats. Remember, you do have torpedoes on both sides, so definitely turn your ship to launch all 4 sets, so you can do a lot of damage to anyone that tries to go towards your flank at all and just make them eat all of the torpedoes. Now remember, the speed boost is going to be your only defensible tool. The 30% to speed and improved acceleration will make you much more difficult to hit. So always have it active right before an engagement and during an engagement. Now you can use this when you're just running around the map and there's no one near you. But if you're unsure of someone being near you, it's just best to save it and wait until you're spotted to be able to use it to be able to get out of a situation or to be able to have an advantage during that engagement with another destroyer. Now moving on from that, let's talk about overall, like the whole Cassard French destroyer torpedo line. Right? Let's talk about the whole line here real quick. I think that the Cassard line is an interesting alternative to the other 3 torpedo-focused destroyer lines. Out of the 3, which will make it 4, this is probably going to be the most difficult of the 4 because of their lack of smoke. And you have no heal as well. You're definitely forced to rely on your speed boost to dodge, and if you're caught without it, even if you're able to caught without it or even with it, if you're not careful, then it's just a quick trip back to port. You probably won't see this line in competitive formats, nor are they exactly the best line in randoms. But if you want a fun torpedo line that can hold its own against our destroyers, then the Cassard is a fine line to grind. I don't think this ship is going to do really good in a ranked format either. It's like okay, it's okay in randoms, but in a competitive format, why take a Cassard when you can just take a legendary Kleber? One, the legendary Kleber is way faster, and its concealment is a little bit higher than the Cassard, but it has such a high maneuverability. That's the main reason why people take the legendary Kleber. It has the torpedoes, the fast reloading torpedoes, and then it has the great speed. The Cassard itself is not going to be able to outrun other Klebers, so there's that. So it's not going to get that same maneuverability bonus the legendary Kleber has, or a Marceau. Like, for instance, the Marceau is really quick, but it has a 7.1 concealment right around there. And the legendary Kleber has a concealment of 6.5 or 6.4-ish. and it's just way quicker than the Cassard is. So the Cassard is kind of in that middle ground where it has good concealment at 6.1, but it's also not a big speed demon like the Marceau and the Kleber, so it can't fill that niche in as well as them due to those reasons. Now, the Cassard does have the French saturation, so if it goes up against a Shima or even a Holland, it'll have a rough time against the Holland, but I believe it can win if it's within close distance. If it's further away distance, then the Holland will definitely win. So you'd have to be definitely careful of this. And in randoms, since this ship does have a 3-kilometer concealment against aerial, if a CV just sees you at all, he's just going to sit over you. That's what they do every time with the French destroyers, because you have no smoke and you don't have any anti-air. I honestly feel like this ship should have had better anti-air. The fact that it has 6-kilometer anti-air, I think it should have about Marceau level anti-air to make this line way better in randoms. The fact that you don't have good anti-air in this ship is going to make it extremely painful for any newer or medium level player to play this line. That's why I was saying that this line is going to be the most difficult of the 4 torpedo boat lines. So a lot of players that are newer aren't going to want to play this. They're going to want to focus more on, like, say, a Shima, a Gearing, a Holland, things that have smoke and a heal, also gross boy. Things that have a smoke and a heal, they're going to make it way more useful and easier to use than compared to this. And even with the 2-minute reload on the Torps, you can't play it like the Legendary Kleber. Legendary Kleber has like a 60-second or 50-something second torpedo reload on the Torps. It's just insanely quick to be able to use. So a lot of people will bring Legendary Klebers into brawls for the memes and lulz and having fun with that, and this just isn't going to be able to do that. Well, it can, but if something's quick enough to get in there before it reloads, then it's going to kill it before it has its torp reload. So having those 2-minute longer, like the 2-minute long torp reload, does add your ability to do memes as much. It's going to be a lot less. But yeah, overall, that's what I think of the Cassard. Now let's talk about a little about the history about the ship itself. The Cassard herself is the 3rd ship of the T-47 class of destroyers. She was commissioned in 1956, just in time to participate in the Suez Canal crisis. Later on, she was upgraded to serve as a flagship, as well as the testing ability for destroyers to use helicopters. As well, you can see today, destroyers do use helicopters, so well done with the testing. But unfortunately, the Cassard was ultimately decommissioned in 1976, but wasn't ultimately scrapped until 1989. So it took about 13 years for it to get scrapped, but it did get scrapped in 1989, unfortunately. Let's just watch the replays and just go over that. So as you can see, I'm pretty much moving from the left side, covering, pretty much trying to spot the torpedoes that are coming in for my team. So as you can see, I saw that the DD was heading toward the right, so I'm going to be heading over there to try to counter him and get in the cap as well. But I also have to watch out for the planes as well. In this particular match, there's a lot, and I mean a lot of torpedoes coming at. Like in this match, there's a lot of torpedoes and there's a lot of aircraft, so I'd be careful of that. So I see him there, I start engaging. You can see I start with HE, but then since I know that that particular DD has armor, I'm going to switch over to AP and start pinning his side and doing a lot more damage. That's one thing that a lot of destroyer players don't realize, is that you can use your AP on destroyers and get it to arm if they have an armored side. So if you memorize which destroyers have armor, you can get a lot of pin damage using that their armor against them. So normally if you would use HE, you wouldn't be able to pin the side there. You'd have to aim at the front or the rear, but since you used AP, you're able to pin it, do a lot of extra damage, and do really well in that engagement. Now, normally I would have gone to get the A cap there, but as you see, I noticed the RPF was over there on the right in the middle. I was like, wait a minute. There's somebody right around there kind of harassing the CV and the rest of my team. So I went right up there, kind of just like, I just started hard Wing at him at this point. Because I wanted him out of this match. Because if you were able to get him out of the match, it made it where I was then able to kind of go in the middle and start supporting my team in the middle. And we could start getting the A and B cap and kind of pretty much enclosing this victory. Because as you can see, our team was able to wipe out their C side pretty effectively, and over at A, both of our heavy sides kind of met at A, but our side was able to win over theirs, which allowed us to be able to pretty much single-handedly win this match. When you have the two strong flanks fighting each other, and whoever's flank wins pretty much is going to win the match, because, again, if you wipe out the strong flank with your strong flank, what's left? Their weak flank, and they're not going to be able to come back from that. So at this point, I'm just going to go to B, start getting the cap there. I keep my anti-air off so I don't get spotted, because again, the anti-air on this thing is pretty bad. You don't want to have it on all the time and get spotted. So it's best to keep it off, unless you're going to be spotted anyway, then yes, of course, you can do it at that point. Now, you do have 13.5 kilometer torps on this thing. So right now, I'm just trying to figure out, hey, when's the best time to torpedo the Yamato? I'm trying to predict where he's going, but with how far away he is, I don't really expect the torps to do pretty much to hit him. I'm just kind of launching them just to get them out. And as you see, you're using both sides of the torpedoes. You're not just going to use one, you're going to use both so they can both be on reload. And as you can see, I'm not really using my engine boost. I'm kind of saving it for the instance of where you need it when you're spotted or when you're going to an engagement. Right now, I'm just being a torpedo boat, just supporting my team, doing spotting, getting the caps, and moving along my merry way. Now, this match was a pretty clean-cut match. There really wasn't anything too special with it. I did a good job spotting torpedoes initially for my team, so they weren't going to be taking a lot of damage from those. Like any good torpedo boat DD or any good DD player, you need to be in front of your cruisers and battleships to help make sure they do not eat torpedoes. Your job is to spot the torpedoes, to just be a spotter in general, and then unleash torpedoes on the enemy as they're cutting away from you or when they're pushing into you. Either or. But like always with these kind of torpedo boat matches, you're either going to get really good matches or you can get really bad matches. There's really no even. It's either you get feast or famine with torpedo boats. That's personally why I'm not the biggest fan of torpedo boats. I prefer playing more gun boats, where you're able to control your interaction with the enemy a lot more, rather than having to rely on torpedoes, which are more random. This just makes it where you're able to. This is more just random, like, because you're just trying to predict where they're going with, like, 30. You have to lead, like, 30 or 40 or even 50 seconds. You have to think ahead of where they're going to be going. And a lot of times, they just do one simple stop or one simple turn, and you're not going to hit any torpedoes at all. So here I got him. Very last bit there. Pretty nice. As you can see, I underled the Schlieffen there, unfortunately, but he is pretty quick, so it is kind of hard to hit him and predict him. I also underled the Yamato. I wasn't sure if he was going to reverse or just do a full turnaround, but as you can clearly see, he just goes full W and starts turning back in because the match is pretty much over at this point. So GG for this match. It was just another one of those blowouts that never happen, unfortunately. To me, like, I consider a blowout if 3 or less of your team dies. I consider those pretty hefty blowouts, in my opinion. If it's 3 or less your team dies, it's a blowout. If more than 3 die, then it's not a blowout, and that's how I usually consider a blowout, because even from the start, we had a very strong advantage over on the A cap, which allowed us to win pretty smoothly. And even on the C side, even though there is a lot less people over there, they still did a really good job doing that match, so very well in that one. Now, normally I would only show 2 replays. I was going to show 3. This one was a match where I played a little bit overly aggressive. And I wanted to kind of show like a match where you play a little bit more aggressive with the ship and kind of explain like where you can mess up on playing aggressive. As you can see, there's like Apollo Amelia right there. He's in middle trying to get the buff. And I'm like, oh, well, I just want to get him. So I started heading over this island over here. Start kind of watching him, trying to see if he's going to pop out, because his goal is to get that buff, and that's what he wants. He wants the buff, and he's either going to reverse out of there, or he's going to come at me. But it's a Apollo Amelia player, right? What are they going to do? We all know what Apollo Amelia players want to do. They're going to yellow. So the dude tries to hard yellow me. He stops trying to predict where I'm going to be launching the torps. And he just eats all of them. So, yeah, rip him. Yeah, that is extremely painful. And with that, I'm back to going dark. And I'm now able to do whatever I want in middle. I was kind of surprised. Their Nevesky, the reason why I wasn't more passive is because their Nevesky really didn't radar. He could have easily radared me earlier on in the match, which would have forced me to be more passive. But he didn't really radar, which I found very suspicious. So it's either because, one, he forgot he had radar, or two, he popped his radar really early in the match to kind of clear the way for the Apollo Amelia to go there. And he popped it too early before I got into his radar detection. And I was able to get that for free. As you can see, I'm heading over to the damage buff, being a good DD player, getting buffs from my teammate. And I start getting myself in a position to torpedo all of those juicy battleships that are over there, right? You see all them juicy battleships? Oh yeah, they're very, 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 very juicy. Now I'm being very, 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 very aggressive here. I'm definitely within the Nevesky's radar range if he did decide to push back in. But as you can see, the Nevesky didn't. He's still cutting off to the 1-2 line, so I'm doing A-okay. I'm doing pretty good. So I start launching the torps down there to hopefully try to hit those battleships there, because if right now they're not really pushing, they're kind of being a little bit more passive due to how many enemies, how many allies of mine are right there. So I'm kind of just watching over there, keeping them spotted for my team as I'm going to rotate back over to mid to support one of my DDs that are over there. Because since the DD was killed, I had more freedom on being able to maneuver wherever I wanted. And I was like, oh, you know what would be great if I try to do a yellow push over on the sea where you see at Ohio. I was like, I really want that, right? I really want that. And this is where I mess up. Instead of going down south, like going down and kind of waiting for him to push around, I decided to just go full yellow at the guy. And I forgot to put in perspective of what also was in there with the Ohio the whole time. There was one other thing there. You guys can probably guess what it is. It's a destroyer. There was a destroyer in there with the Ohio, and my whole plan gets ruined. Now, as you can see, I am doing a lot of damage with those torpedoes. I'm just having fun over there, torpedoing the living crap out of them with those torps, so doing a lot of damage with that. Makes me very happy. But I was like, oh yeah, I'm gonna be able to go in here, be perfectly fine, right? And nope, there's a destroyer right there. And it's a Haragumo of all things, and we know how much damage Haragumos do. And yeah, it's not gonna work out in the end, unfortunately. But anyway, that's gonna be the end of the video. If you guys have any questions, concerns, definitely leave them in the comments down below. Oh, this is Overlord Bo. Thank y'all for watching, and I will talk to y'all later.